Militarily Speaking, episode 27, Children of Fallen Patriots Foundation.
This episode, we talk with David Kim, co-founder and CEO of Children of Fallen Patriots.
Welcome to Militarily Speaking, brought to you by Armed Forces Bank. This is Tom McLean and Jodi Vickery, my co-host. I'm the Regional Military Executive for Armed Forces Bank, and Jodi is the Executive Vice President, Director of Military Consumer Lending. Wow, that threw in a little bit of a twist there, didn't you? It's a nice intro.
Again, welcome to our show. We're excited to have you listening and learning about our guest, Children of Fallen Patriots with David Kim. David, I'm going to take just a second and introduce you to our audience. David is the global co-head of investor relations for Apax Partners, a leading global private equity investment firm with 7 offices around the world. Apax is one of the largest private equity firms in the world, having raised over $60 billion in capital to provide long-term equity financing to growth companies. He's been with Apax since 2000 and is responsible for fundraising and investor services in North and South America. David is an honors graduate at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point and the Harvard Business School. He also served as an artillery officer in the U.S. Army, where he participated in Operation Just Cause in Panama in 1989 with the 7th Infantry Division. David is a graduate of the U.S. Army Airborne Ranger and Jungle Warfare Schools. He is married and has 4 children, 2 of whom also attend the U.S. Academy at West Point. His wife, Cynthia, serves as the Volunteer Programs Director for Fallen Patriots. So I should have mentioned too, David, when we were chatting earlier, my husband's also artillery, so he would like you very much.
Excellent. Red-legged.
Yes. Actually, at an old former house, that was the code for our alarm system was red leg. And he had to explain it to me. I'm like, why would that be our code for our alarm? But yeah. So he was a howitzer gun chief.
Yeah. That's awesome. My son actually just graduated from Field Artillery Officer Basic Leadership course. So
very nice.
We were out at Fort Sill last week for his graduation.
Yep. He spent a lot of time at Fort Sill.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I just want to say welcome to you, and we appreciate you being here with us today, David. Tom and I are big fans of the work, of course, that you do with Children of Fallen Patriots. And to start off with, we'd just like to give you an opportunity to tell our audience about your organization kind of at the macro level, and then we'll dive in with various different questions.
Sure, White. I'd like to thank both of y'all for having me on here and talking about Fallen Patriots. It's a real honor, and appreciate what you guys do to spread awareness of the mission of various military service organizations. So thank you.
You're welcome.
The mission of Children of Fallen Patriots is to provide college scholarships to military children from all branches who lost a parent in the line of duty. And that could include combat, of course, training, suicide, and then also other illnesses and line of duty deaths. And so that's our direct mission. I'd say in a larger sense, our mission is to honor the sacrifice of our nation's fallen heroes. All of us are keenly aware that our way of life is only made possible because of those people who gave everything for our country and for our freedom. And so that we thought, the way that we could honor that is to invest in the future of the people they love most in the world, which are their kids, and to maybe in some small way help them accomplish the dreams that their parents would have wanted for them.
I love that.
Reminds me as I was watching your YouTube video, and congratulations on your Veteran of the Year award you recently received, right, from the Military Times Foundation. So congratulations on that, David.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. That was very, very kind. And I think it's really an award for all of our supporters and all the patriots across the country who make our mission possible. But I appreciate that.
Agree. And then as I was watching that, when you brought up the Panama and the Noriega thing, brought chills back to me that you were part of that Just Cause mission. So it was kind of cool to see that. So as I segue into the next relevant question, okay, David, is you've got a personal connection with your company's mission. So tell us a little bit about Sergeant William Delaney Gibbs.
Yes. So he and I were in the 7th Infantry Division back in 1989 when we were sent down to Panama on Operation Just Cause. We were in the same battalion. Unfortunately, Sergeant Gibbs was killed in the fighting, and that was a few days before Christmas, and he had a baby daughter due in March, and he was only 21. So, that was a tough one for everybody. I didn't know him personally, but of course that, he was the only member of our unit who died. And And so that hit all of us pretty hard. And I just kept thinking about his daughter and what was going to happen to her and, who'd take care of her. And, many years later, I became a parent. I'm sure any parent out there, if anything was to happen to one of us, our last thought would be, who's going to take care of my kids?
Right.
And so that's what inspires Cynthia and I to start Fallen Patriots as a way to do that and to give back in some small way of this, what the blessings that have been bequeathed to us by people like Sergeant Gibbs.
I'd like to understand a little bit, David. So for the children that are in this situation, how do they find you? Do you find them? How do they get connected with Children of the Fallen? How many kids have you been able to help? How does that whole process work?
Yeah, so there's a bit of a top-down and a bottoms-up approach, if I describe it that way. If I zoom out for a second, the need is about 25,000 students who've lost a parent in the line of duty over the last 3+ decades. And I say about because nobody knows exactly how many there are. Of course, the government and the military have the information stored in different places. It's not always readily accessible, sometimes for very good reasons, like the Privacy Act. But
sure,
net is there's no central database of all these families who've lost a loved one. And so we've done several consulting studies. We think that 25,000 estimate is a very good one for kids who lost a parent in the line of duty. And so that is one of our twin strategic goals, is to find all 25,000 of those students and put them into a database, which would be a first. Nobody's in our country has ever managed to do that. And so I'm happy to say that we've compiled a database of about half of those students at this point. I think that's as big or bigger than any database that exists in our industry. And that's just because we're a focus factor and we've been just completely focused on Gold Star children for the last 20 years. So that's the need. Now, the families that we find, we are by and large reaching out to them because they're raised with such strong values by their military parents that they're extremely self-reliant and they're reluctant to ask for help. And initial conversation is generally something like the response that we get of, gosh, it's okay, I can suck it up. Somebody else probably needs the help more than I do. Mm-hmm. And then you dig in a little bit more and you find out that they're, don't have decent reading glasses and they're living in a trailer and surviving on ramen because they're so short of money to go to school. And that's literally the case with one of the first young men that we helped. And so it's an honor to be able to help people who have that kind of self-reliance and resiliency. And we tell them, look, it's okay. Let us carry the rucksack for a little while and help you out. And so we're reaching out both top down and bottoms up. We do have a partnership with the VA. And so we reach out to military units as well. And then we also reach out on a ground floor level by liaising with other charities who maybe serve that same population of Gold Star students and do different things. So I noticed that you had Gary Sinise, Jim Morella on before. Yep. Joe's a great guy. They, of course, have Snowball Express. And so they've been a great partner. Like we share names and families and cross market and so forth. And so that's how we find them all, but it's one by one. And as we call it, it's finding our lost sheep. And so it's great to be able to get them in there and then hopefully we can help connect them with other sources of aid that we don't provide, but then make sure that we get them in the database while they're young. Because most of the time, people doing the really dangerous jobs of the young, service members, and they have young kids at home. And so we want to get them in the database and tracked so that when they're ready for college, many, many years later, we'll be there for them.
I was going to ask that. How soon do you try to make contact with them? And you just answered that. How many children have you helped with college assistance like that at this point?
Yeah, I'm really, blessed to say that we've helped about 3,000 students go to college. About half of them have graduated debt-free, and we've provided about $63 million in total support. That's scholarships and other types of programmatic support that we provide. The total need is $625 million. That's what our goal is to solve, because there is a gap. As I mentioned, the government funding does not cover the full cost of college. It's about $25,000 for one student to graduate in 4 years from college. Times 25,000 students is about $625 million. So we've made a good dent in that, but that's our goal, is to get that solved. And, believe it or not, in our nation's history, we've never managed to plug that gap. And so while it's a big amount of money, in the grand scheme of things, it's not big. There are charities that raise more than that every single year. And I think, before before I go, my goal is to solve that need.
That's pretty awesome.
It is. It makes me a little bit sad that we don't step up as a country and just do that. But I am glad that you are standing in the gap and working to fill the void.
It's also pretty cool. You talk about the military world, the life we live, and the tight-knit bond that exists with the nonprofits, as well as just being in the service or being a veteran. And I saw Sam Meek from Sandbox that's on your LinkedIn, yep. I think. And
yep.
And you mentioned the Gary Sinise Foundation. We talked to the Pat Tillman Foundation. That the interconnectivity in this world and in this space in which you operate and live, David, is pretty cool. The way it all comes together, and you're all working towards a common goal.
Yeah, that's right. One big team. It's a little bit like the armed forces in a way. Everyone's got a different job to do, but it's all critically important, and we all try to work together as much as we can. And even working with the government, I think that, at the end of the day, I don't see it as a criticism of government that the full need is not met, because it's just not possible.
Right.
There are so many different variations of the need, and, the government's got to have rules and administer a program, but there's always gaps in those rules. And so there's a real need for a public-private partnership for private organizations to step up and fill those gaps in a very flexible and nimble way. And that's what we're doing.
You probably have stories galore about how many people you've helped along this journey. And I'm sure you and your team and your board members have stories to talk about too. And I listened to the story about Jeanette McMahon and how the 3 kids made it through with your help. So if you can go a little bit, as much detail as you can, David, too, about how you've seen that assistance help kids over the year and help the families in general. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So we, think of it as holistic care, because of course our primary mission is to provide those college scholarships to cover all costs related to college, to help, our students complete school without the burden of college loans, and thereby flip a tremendous negative of growing up without a parent into, something of a positive, with having that flexibility to not have college debt and to pursue your passions in life going forward. So that's certainly the core of what we do. But what we also want to do is 2 other things. One is, every bit as important as a financial mission is the emotional care and support that we provide. We have about 25 people on staff. Half of them are themselves students that we help graduate from college. And they're the ones running our scholarships and outreach under the guidance of my wife, because that's where she focuses, is on that scholarship side. And so, the people giving out our scholarships were recipients. And so they've been there, they've been in the shoes of our families. I think it's sometimes hard to appreciate from a distance just the tremendous hole that's been torn in their lives and the enduring trauma that it takes to get over that. And look, our families don't think of themselves as victims in a lot of ways in society. It's really cool to be a victim now, but that's the last thing they think of themselves as. But they've got a lot that they got to get over. And so, that emotional outreach and support and care that our staff gives is every bit as important as the financial aid. There's a young lady named Cassidy LaBeouf, who was one of the students that we helped. She came to an event that we had with other students centered around careers, and I'll touch on that in a second. But she said that she had never met another Gold Star student before. She'd been walking down that road without having anyone to commiserate with. And so she met this group of other students that we had for this event, and she said it was just a wonderful experience. They stayed up all night long talking and sharing. And she said that it did more for her emotionally than 10 years of therapy.
Wow.
Had done. And that's something that's just so important about what we do. It's a blessing to be, part of that. So that emotional support is as important as financial. And then the third part of all holistic care is providing the career support, because we want to help our students, learn about the wonderful career opportunities that are out there and then connect with those. So we have career seminars where our corporate partners will have executives come and talk about, this is the world of marketing or finance or consulting or manufacturing, et cetera, computer science, and what career opportunities are available, because our students don't know what they don't know. And then we also have internships and full-time jobs available with our corporate partners too. And so we've placed 50 students, nearly 50 students into jobs, including at Fallen Patriots. And we've had, hundreds attend our career seminars. So the financial, the emotional, and the career are the three parts of our holistic care.
I love that. And so it wasn't on the questions that we sent you, but it makes me want to ask, how does a company become a corporate partner and be involved in making job opportunities or internships available?
I was going to ask the same thing.
I read your mind.
I know.
Yeah. Well, we're fortunate to have many different corporate partners, including some Fortune 500 names that everyone would know, Casey's General Stores and Citigroup and Pepsi and RBC and Virtue Financial and lots of other companies that are out there. Really big ones. Markham International is a huge one. So they come in all stripes. They're all patriots, and they all have a different way of giving that suits their business model. And so I'd say if someone out there has an interest in getting involved, just give us a holler and we could talk it through. But it really just revolves around what worked to their business. Pepsi does a national relay with a flag that was flown in combat across the entire country through all of their bottlers and logistics system. It involves a lot of different clients that also give money along the way. Citigroup does a percentage of their trading profits during a certain period of the year in foreign exchange. Casey's does a roundup program in their thousands of stores across the country. So there's lots of different examples. We've even had groups that are, military employee resource groups that'll have different departments compete against each other and raise money, for fallen patriots and send a scholar to school. So $25,000 will cover one scholar for 4 years, a complete college education. And it's a great way to think about having impact. So there's lots of different ways to skin that proverbial cat.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. And so I kind of want to know, so when we read your bio, you're obviously very busy with your work with Apex Partners. How is it that you find the time and carve out the energy to do all of this? I know you're
two of them.
I know. Yeah. Maybe there's a second David running around behind him. I don't know. But is it just the passion that you have for the mission and the cause that gives you the energy to do that on top of obviously what's a very busy career as well?
Well, no, I appreciate that. I mean, I think there's a couple of different things. One is that, been very blessed by the good Lord who just finds a way to make things happen like he does and paves the way. But we also have just an amazing team. I really can't take, that much credit. Our board is incredibly involved and committed. All of those names that I mentioned have board members who, are very involved in those initiatives. They donate a huge amount of their personal funds that covers almost all of our administrative expense. Of 95% of our revenues are available to go to programs.
That's great.
We also have a big team of people, 25 people, and all of them are just very committed to the mission. As I mentioned, half of them are Gold Star students. Almost all the rest of them are veterans. So people like Lily, who served in the Army and did a couple of deployments and work with us now, and civilians who just are great patriots. And that's actually most of our donors are civilians who haven't served, maybe don't even have anybody in the military, but they just love their country and know that none of it would be possible without our military and want to support our cause. And that's the other thing I must say. I mean, the energy that people pour into this, that our donors and supporters pour into it is really amazing. So I think those are the keys to what's happening with Fallen Patriots.
I think that makes sense. It gives people a vehicle to act on that sense of patriotism and wanting to do something and wanting to give back. It's an action-oriented way to do something about it.
And it's almost
100%.
It's unconditional too, that they expect nothing in return.
Yeah, no, that's right. People just really want to serve it. Like you said, with fewer than 1% of the population serving, a lot of people just don't know how to connect and how to serve these families that have lost everything. And so when you make that connection, it's very powerful.
So looking at your website, what's your website, David?
It's fallenpatriots.org.
Okay. So we'll say it again, fallenpatriots.org.
Yes.
So Jodi and I have been looking at your website, and a lot of other people have, I'm sure. You've got some awesome fundraising events, golf tournaments, galas, relays. Tell us about some of the fun and innovative ways you try to raise money for the organization.
Yeah, it's really great. It's amazing to see what people come up with. The personal giving is really similar to the corporate giving in the sense that it just fits the circumstances of the individuals that we're dealing with and whatever works, So, I'm an Army guy, but to use a naval analogy, everyone's got a different oar. and it's pulling the water a different way, but it adds up and moves the ship quite a lot. And so, as you mentioned, we've had folks who put on big golf tournaments for us, but we've also had families that have had a special occasion or maybe even, a funeral or someone's memorial where they've donated funds to fallen patriots. We've had little kids, that have had birthday parties. Instead of getting money or presents, they would donate to fallen patriots. We've had college students. In fact, one college student that just did a fundraiser at her school around a baseball game. So there's just so many different ways that people have donated. We've had big family foundations, of course, folks that have donated, very big sums and also very modest sums. We've had donor advice funds and financial advisors that are advising others on how to give. Community foundations that are sort of pooled giving vehicles also have supported. And so, there's really a million different ways that people can make it happen just according to whatever works best in their life.
I would say it's very true then that every dollar counts, whether it's modest amounts that people are able to pull and donate, or whether it's a big amount from an organization. Because of that number that you threw out a minute ago, and I don't want folks to miss hearing that, the 95% of the revenues are going towards the programs that you're supporting.
Most charitable organizations are in the 80s or 70s.
Yeah, so I really want to emphasize that because literally every dollar helps, right?
Yeah.
When you're doing that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And there's just a couple of terms I want to clarify. So, because our admin expense, the net admin and expense of the board donations is so small, it equates to, 95% of revenues being available for programs. And then, of the total spend that we give, it's in the mid 80s in terms of, of the $100 that we spend every year, 85 will go to programs. And then, the rest would be to other items, but most of that other items is covered by, the board expense. So
Sure.
I'm probably throwing out too many numbers, but I want to be very exact for people so that we don't overpromise.
Well, you're trying to be transparent, which is good.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, we do have a 100% rating from Charity Navigator. Fewer than 1% of the charities that they rate are able to achieve 100% rating.
Wow.
So we're very happy about that. And again, try to run Fallen Patriots like a business.
So how is it running a business, as you put it, with your wife? I can't imagine running a business with my husband, to be quite honest. So yeah, when he readjusted from the Army, that was a period of adjustment, living under the same roof. And now he works remote on days when I work remote, and we're doing 2 different jobs for 2 different companies, and that's difficult. So how do y'all manage that? And how do you enjoy partnering with your wife in this endeavor?
Yeah, well, it's been really great. I must say it's been a tremendous blessing to do it. It's really brought us closer together. It gives us a lot of food to joke about. I mean, I like to say, she's right most of the time and I'm almost right other times, but
she'll never tell you.
But I'm totally kidding. I mean, it's been great. She's really, really inspiring. We started Fallen Patriots when we had nothing. Both of us come from nothing, and her parents are immigrants. My dad was an immigrant. We were living in a rented townhouse with a little baby and still had her college couch. And so, she agreed to put in money into this and get it started. And when we started, I was raising money and running the business, and she was the one on the phone with the families. And so that's still how we do it today. It's been just, she loves the family so much and cares about them so much and knows their personal stories and is very close to them. So she's really the heart in our mission, I must say. And so it's been a real joy and privilege to be able to watch her do it.
Very well said, David.
Thank you. Yeah, she's incredible. So, and her dad was a Korean War veteran and in the Navy. He came from the Philippines, didn't speak English, didn't have any money, and his way to become a citizen would be to serve. That's what he did for a very long time. Korean War veteran. And then, our mission after we started Fallen Patriots, it touched her very personally because her best friend lost her brother-in-law in a training crash.
Wow.
And he had a number of kids. So it's very personal for her too.
I'll go back to your board composition. You have some heavy hitters on there on your board of advisors, and Holly Petraeus being one of them too. And what a great representation you have. And then even looking at Colonel Jack Jacobs, I hope I'm saying that right, MSNBC commentator. He also is a Medal of Honor recipient. We just had Medal of Honor Day on Saturday, a couple days ago. And we've got a few of those Medal of Honor recipients that are close to our bankers and around the country. And we took time to honor them on that day too. So again, the small world of the military and the calendar events that bring all of us together is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, sure is. The military is a big organization, but it's a small world. And Jack is an incredible patriot. He's supported us since the very earliest days, since we were literally just a mom and pop. And by the way, so is Holly Petraeus. I mean, when they've been with us for, a dozen years at least, and from the very, very earliest days, just took a flyer on two Asian rednecks, as Cynthia and I ourselves. And so they're wonderful people. You guys should interview Jack sometime. Be happy to connect you. His story is literally the foundation of that famous scene in Forrest Gump, where he was advisor to a Vietnamese unit. They were ambushed. The officers were all killed. He had to take control. He got his men out. He had to go back into the kill zone several times himself to try to get his men out. He took out himself a couple of enemy squads. Wow. And he still can't smell or taste because of the grenade fragments in his head. So, yeah, and he's an amazing guy. He's hilarious to boot. And then he, as if doing that wasn't enough, he was a lifelong career in the Army. And then he got out and became a successful partner on Wall Street and Bankers Trust and did really well. And then he's had this life in commentating, and he teaches at West Point, and he's a force of nature.
He's a busy guy.
Yeah.
You have one son. Your eldest son graduated from West Point, right? And your daughter is one of your daughters, or your daughter's currently there too. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, our son Whit graduated last year from West Point. He's an artillery officer. Just finished that course, and then he's at airborne school right now. Okay. First day of airborne school, learn to parachute, and then he'll go to the 101st Airborne Division in April. And then we have another son who's a senior in college. He's planning to join the Navy. Wow. And he'd like to try out to be a SEAL. So he's focused on training 4 or 5 hours a day for that. And then we have twin daughters. One of them, Molly, is at West Point. She's a sophomore as well. And then her twin sister's at UPenn.
Incredible family of service.
No pressure on the other sister at UPenn, though, right?
No, as I always tell them, God's got a different path for everybody. So she's got to find hers. And just because mine was in the military does not mean theirs should be. I said the same thing to all of them, especially when they went to West Point. Like, you got to make sure you've been called to this path, and not just because I did. And so they've enjoyed it, though.
My dad was an Episcopal priest, and his father and his father and his father were all priests. My brother is named after my father, and he broke the chain. So
it might have been broken by default when it got to you. I don't know. I don't know.
No,
maybe.
It doesn't work that way.
I don't know. Maybe.
So one final question. We're getting to the finish line here, David. Ready?
Yes.
Thank you for telling your great story about your accomplishments and what you've done so far with the foundation. And you're about 10% of your goal when it comes to the dollar amount you want over the next years and decades coming up. But is there anything else you want to accomplish with the organization that's front and center for you?
Well, I'd say, our big, hairy, audacious goal is still in front of us, is to find all 25,000 students and then get them funded. And that's doable. It's never been done. As I mentioned, $600 million is a lot of money, but there are charities that raise multiples of that every year. And so, I should, God willing, have another quarter century left. And before I go, my goal is to get that funded. And so that's what we're doing. We're a focus factory. This is all we do, and we'll get there eventually.
I believe you. I haven't heard the term BHAG for a while, so bringing it back. Yes, I like it.
And we're going to become a focus factory at Armed Forces Bank too, because I'm using some of his buzzwords.
Yes, you should use BHAG. It's a good one. A good one. Well, we appreciate you being here with us today, David. If you'll hang with us for just a second, we want to play a game that Tom is super fond of called the Military Minute.
Have we played it before?
Kind of why he gets up in the morning, I think. It's a trivia game we play with our audience. So I want to refresh our audience on last week's Military Minute. It was a question centered around our guest baking business. If you remember, we had Dog Tag Bakery.
Dog Tag Bakery was here.
Yes, I have my new Dog Tag Bakery. Our question was about the bakery business, given our guest. And it was, what was the name of the first bakery opened in the United States? Did you answer, Tom?
Mm-hmm. Well, I came up with a question and the answer.
Oh, well, then you can't answer. So if you commented on our social media post and said United States Bakery, better known as Fran's Family Bakeries, then you are correct. And so watch for your name to be posted on our social media feed. And if you were selected as the winner,
My favorite part.
You will receive $50 for you and $50 to a charity of your choice.
And it could be Children of the Fallen Patriots.
It very well could be Children of the Fallen Patriots. And so for this week's Military Minute, we're going to shift gears a little, go a little pop culture. I know you like that a lot. Me, not so much. I don't have time to watch movies and TV, but here we go. Don't answer, Tom, because you probably know.
Make sure David doesn't answer.
Don't answer, David. If you know, you can't answer.
All right. We'll see if he's a Star Wars guy or not, right?
What was initially supposed to be Luke Skywalker's last name in the original script for Star Wars A New Hope? The name went on to be used for a military base. Nobody answer.
Ooh.
Silent. So watch for this podcast to drop if you know the answer.
He knows it. He's got the look.
Do you know it, David?
Yeah.
Don't answer.
No, I don't. I don't know it.
Well, so now we're all going to be Googling this afternoon on what the answer is to that. So watch for this podcast to drop. And if you think you know, go ahead and comment the answer. And then you too could be selected to win $50 for yourself and $50 for a charity of your choice. Again, I want to circle back, David, to say thank you for being here. We want to mention the fallenpatriots.org website one more time.
Thank you very much again on behalf of Armed Forces Bank. Thank you, Lily, for orchestrating this event, making it happen. If you enjoyed today's episode, go out to afbank.com, subscribe to the show. Also, make sure to rate us. Leave us a comment on your favorite podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Thank you again, David. Well done.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Excellent. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Copyright 2022 Armed Forces Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. All non-Armed Forces Bank owned apps, websites, company names, and product names are trademarks or registered trademarks of their respective owners. Their mention does not imply any affiliation with or endorsement by Armed Forces Bank of them or their products and services. They are merely used as examples of the many available apps, companies, and websites that offer similar services. Before using any app or website, you should carefully review the terms of use, data collection, and privacy policy. Apps may have an initial cost or in-application purchase features. This information is general in nature and is not intended to be legal, tax, or financial advice. Although Armed Forces Bank believes this information to be accurate, it cannot ensure that it could change. Statements or opinions of individuals referenced herein are their own, not Armed Forces Bank. Consult an appropriate professional concerning your specific situation and respective governing bodies for applicable laws, such as IRS.gov for current tax law. Armed Forces Bank, the Armed Forces Bank logo, and the Militarily Speaking logo are registered trademarks of Armed Forces Bank.